Hello and welcome to an episode of Thursday Night Deckbuilding. Why dark? Because this video might not actually go to the public YouTube section. It's a deck I built by personal request. In this case, I was asked to build a deck that uses only holographic personnel. So we're talking about Decipher-only format, only cards up to all good things, and apparently for some house rules that deal with some of the more annoying Decipher cheese, and it's supposed to be rather casual and not super ultra competitive hardcore stuff. So I took an hour to see what I could come up for that. So as I said, the big thing was it's supposed to be only holographic personnel. If that is doable at all, I will get to in a minute. And the other thing was the person asked me to maybe include a Holoprogram card, since they have never played with one of those. So I tried to do that as well. So let's have a look what I've got here. Let's start with the Seedface. With the first part, we need some doorways. We're going to use a Q's tent and a temporal micro wormhole. This temporal micro wormhole might not actually be necessary. I'll get to that in a moment. Next up are missions. We are playing in the Delta Quadrant. We run answer distress signal and establish home planet. There's also liberation. There's study interstellar colony. You see that I'm putting it away from liberation here. There's catalog phenomena. That is the one you want to seed next to liberation. Why? I'm going to explain in a moment. And there's also restore victims. Why do we need these two next to each other? Because we want to seed a Necrit supply depot, and that seeds in or adjacent to the Necrit Expanse region. This is our only Necrit Expanse region mission, so to seed it adjacent to that, we have to put it next to liberation, because that's where we want to start, because that is where we can seed Caretaker's Array. Caretaker's Array is going to allow us to seed a Delta Quadrant ship, which is the Olara, and the outpost will be the place where our two downloaded mission specialists will end up. They are Sir Isaac Newton and Dr. Leah Brahms. It would also be possible to build the outpost somewhere else. In that case, you will just have the Necrit supply depot over there, and the Olara could still report there, and then you would just have to fly over. But doing this that way just makes it a little bit easier. All right, almost done. We have Children of Light, which is the big card here. It allows all our holograms to mix and cooperate, but only the personnel. So we are still required to use non-aligned ships, because the Federation guys, for example, would not be compatible with a strictly Hydrogen ship, but the Olara in non-aligned mode is fine. We also have Ancestral Vision. This is going to be our main draw engine. We seed it here at Liberation. And we're going to seed a Holoprogram, the Office of Dixon Hill, on our ship with holodeck. That is the Olara. I'll just put it aside for the moment. That's all for the non-dilemma seeds. Dilemmas, we can really use whatever we want. I just limited myself to some of the classics here, and no more than 2 of each. So there's Ferengi Infestation in there, and so on. I'm going to put a suggestion as to how to group the dilemmas in the written documentation that goes with this. Okay, so the deck is not going to be ultra competitive. We are limiting ourselves to only 1 regular card play, but we have some ways to get more personnel into play. So let's just give this a good shuffle and then draw a starting hand of 7, and it's going to look something like this. You can expect to find at least 1 holodeck door, and you will probably also find lots of holograms there. So without further ado, we want to be able to fly our ship. That is, if we find a gold star in our opening hand, we use that as our card play. It can report directly aboard the Olara, thanks to its specific game text. And then, if we have a holodeck door in hand, we are going to play that. always play always for free during our turn. And once each turn, we may download a holoprogram or any hologram. So since all our cards, all our personnel in the deck are holograms, we are free to pick and choose whatever we want. Our first download here from the queue's tent can either be Cyrus Redblock or what I would recommend here, Kijal. So I'm doing this assuming that you're playing with the rule that holograms can report activated. This used to be the case, then at some point around 2001, Decipher introduced the rule that holograms actually need a flesh and blood personnel or an android to actually activate them. So depending on which rule you're going to use in your games, you might actually need to include a proper personnel that is not a holographic recreation, and that is why we have the temporal micro wormhole. That would allow us to download Dr. Telegramor, he's in the queue's tent. By ditching the temporal micro wormhole when we play him directly aboard the ship, we make him compatible with all our other personnel in play, so he can work with the Federation holograms, with the Hyrosian holograms, and so on, and of course with the non-aligned ship. And he would be our one guy that switches on the lights, so to speak. And that's his only purpose in the deck. If you're playing with the rule that you can report holograms activated, then you can ditch Dr. Telegramor, you can ditch the temporal micro wormhole. We don't need this for anything else other than switching on the holograms. Okay, so let's put him back in the tent for the moment. All right, so that's basically what our turns are going to look like. We play a personnel with our regular card play, and we use a holodeck door to download another hologram, not holoprogram. The holoprogram is something else, but we'll come to that in a moment. So, assuming these holograms have all been activated, either because you report them or because you have somebody who switched them on, then we are going to beam Kijal down to the planet. Sorry, do it the other way around. We're going to use a special download of holoprojectors. There are several copies in the deck. You will want to use the one in the tent first and download it to anywhere at her location. So of course you're going to play it on the planet. Meaning on this planet, holograms can now exist. Holoprojectors is another one of those cards that has undergone significant changes by Decipher, not by the continuing committee. So what I'm talking about here is strictly all during the Decipher era. Originally, a single copy of holoprojector simply played on the table, and then your holograms could exist anywhere, on any planet you wanted, which is very, very powerful. With this change that was introduced later, it's now limited to only one planet. So if you want your holograms to beam down to a different planet, you have to wait until you have drawn into another copy of holoprojectors and play that on the other planet. Again, depending on which version of the card you prefer in your group, this might make a big difference. But assume we just have it there on the planet. Kijal beams down, she can now exist there in her activated state. And this is enough to trigger Ancestral Vision, because Kijal has both the Honor skill and Integrity greater than 7 to trigger us an extra card draw at the end of our turn from Ancestral Vision. Okay, and that's about it. We would have to end our turn by drawing our regular card and then another one for the Ancestral Vision. Okay. So looking at our hand, we see that we now have enough personnel to actually be able to fly the ship. We have the staffing icons in hand. We still don't have a non-aligned personnel, so we can't actually fly this ship yet. But as soon as we draw into another holodeck door, this time we've been unlucky, but we should find one sooner or later. What we could do now to increase our chances of finding a holodeck door is play Krell Moset with our regular card play. And then in our orders phase, we could use his special text. Once each turn, may discard a personal present to play a Cardassian personal and or draw up to 2 cards. So let's see, we don't actually need this Jem'Hadar. Krell Moset munches him, discards him. Then we can play a Cardassian from hand, for example, Doran, and also draw up to 2 cards. Still no holodeck door, but there's another holoprojectors for later on, so that's good to have. So this case, our shuffle has really let us down. In those remaining 32 cards, we should have 8 copies of holodeck door, so that is significantly worse than you would probably expect in a regular game. Okay, end of our turn, we draw another 2. And it's looking better right now. Okay, next turn, let's play wise with our regular card play. We have a holodeck door. Use that to grab a non-aligned personal. That's Cyrus red block. The holodeck door is removed from the game. And with Cyrus aboard, we now also have our final play engine. Cyrus red block interacts with the Holoprogram, the Office of Dixon Hill. If Cyrus red block is aboard our ship, once each turn we may request the item. Requesting the item means you place 1 card from your hand face down on the table. So we could do that with, for example, our Cardassian guy here. And then we give our opponent the choice. Either we get to play this card, our opponent doesn't know what it is, for free and also draw a card, or they will have to let us score 5 points. Basically 5 points for just either discarding a card or having the chance to play it. So for our opponents, that's really a tough decision. Most of the time, people will give you the points early on, just so you won't be able to set up big engines or get a big advantage on the board. But of course, if they give us enough points, that means we might end up having to do a mission fewer than we would have to do normally. Okay, let's say they just give us the 5 points and we have to remove this guy. We are on the board with 5 points, so let's have a look at the board, whether that helps us at all. You see we have Restore Victims, which is worth 55 points, and also Establish Home Planet, which is worth 30, but if our away team is comprised of only holographic personnel, and you know it is going to be, then it's worth 25 extra points. So either of these big missions here nets us 55 points. And then our go-to space mission would be the relatively easy Answer Distress Signal, Engineer Officer Medical, worth 30 points, plus another 10 if a hologram is in the crew. Duh. So that's 55 and 40, bringing us to 95. Our opponent has already given us 5 for the Office of Dixon Hill, so we are already on our way to a 2-mission win. Of course, these missions for 55 points are relatively difficult. They require a lot of skills, but remember, our personnel cannot really be killed. They can only be deactivated. And then all it takes is another personnel to activate them again. So you would just, on your next turn, report another hologram, beam it down, and switch on the lights again. But all those typical kill dilemmas won't affect us. And this is something that we are also going to use to our advantage. So each turn we are going to give our opponent the choice of giving us 5 points and maybe allowing us to get away with the significantly easier liberation mission here, or they let us play a card for free. They don't know what it's going to be. It might be a lowly hologram here, but it might also be the anti-time anomaly. And then they are already on a countdown here. At the end of our 3rd full turn, unless this card is destroyed first, all personnel in play are killed, which usually is bad for every opponent. It's also bad for us, but all our personnel that would normally be killed are only deactivated, meaning next turn somebody switches them on again. We could also play a holodeck door if we have one in hand to actually prevent one of our guys from being deactivated by using the 3rd function. So that's if we use the rule that holograms cannot report activated. So in this case, whenever the anti-time anomaly goes off, you would play a holodeck door from hand to keep one of your guys from being deactivated, so you would have somebody on the board to switch on your personal again. All right, and that's really most of the tricks in the deck. So if you have a look at the deck, you'll find that there are, as I said, lots of copies of the holodeck door. We've seen fewer than we would normally expect. And you will have some of the heavy hitters. There's Eden, of course. There's the lovely Professor Honeybear. There's the Equinox Doctor, who has good downloads. He can download a medical kit, which gives all our officer guys the medical skill, or a Type 2 phaser if we need extra strength for some of the more common planet dilemmas, like Hanonian Land Eel, where we need strength, or Denovan Neuroparasites, where a phaser would allow us to prevent one more personal from being killed. Again, being killed is not important here, but it would allow one more personal to go on in the current mission attempt. So, good thing is, with the holodeck doors, we can download whichever hologram we need. If it's diplomacy, we can go for Anastasia Komananov. If it's something like science, there's Leonardo da Vinci. And so on and so forth. We can get all the traits we need. The problem is the holograms don't have the best of skill spreads. So diplomacy is very rare. I don't think there's a third diplomacy apart from Eden and Anastasia here. So that's a good thing that these people cannot really be killed. There is also a engineering kit in the deck that gives all our officer guys the engineer skill, just like the medical kit does for medical. And then with several copies of, for example, good old Paul Rice, we could then generate more engineers and more officers. There are several copies of the Hydrogen Cardassian guys to use with the Krell-Moset engine, where sacrifice your own guys for card draws. And of course to play another Cardassian, that's why it's good to have some extra Cardassians in hand. Temporal Rift is a very powerful interrupt to mess with your opponent a little bit if you play the original version where you can make an opponent's ship disappear. It would also be a neat way to dodge the anti-time anomaly yourself. If you want to pull off that, anti-time anomaly goes off, but just before it does that, you send your ship to the future, and then it is safe from the anti-time anomaly, and it comes back after the big boom has happened here. Is there anything else I want to address there? Yes, there is Palatov that gets you back a card from this card pile, a non-personal card, so you can get back an anti-time anomaly, or something else. I'm thinking especially of the ship here. Since it's mostly a theme deck, I didn't want to include any other ships. We're just taking our one shot aboard the Olara, and that's it. If our Olara gets destroyed, we have 2 copies of Palatov to try and get it back, but really the game is most likely over at that point if a full ship with all the holograms aboard is destroyed. So if the ship is destroyed, all the holograms aboard it are erased too. They can't exist if the ship they are aboard is destroyed. So that's pretty much game over. But still, I think you can pull off some fun things with that. As far as star power is concerned, well, you have some people like Kira and Dex, but you can't really include versions of all the guys from Deep Space Nine, for example, since some of the versions don't really have skills that contribute anything. Of course, you could include people like the hologram version of Worf or of O'Brien, but that's really just if you want to continue with the theme a little bit. But they don't really add anything that you need for the deck to work. All right, that's about it. I hope it has become clear what the general idea behind the deck is, and give it a try. Let me know how it works, and as I said, make sure that you are on the same page with the people you are going to play with as far as the reporting holograms activated or deactivated rule is concerned, as far as the power level of the holoprojectors is concerned, and also remember that the version of Caretaker's Array that you see here is not the one that you will find printed on the original Decipher card, because this one is significantly weaker than the one you have. But for seeding purposes, it works just the same. All right, that's it. I had fun looking at these cards. I hope you have fun playing the deck. Let me know how it works. If you have any questions, feel free to get in contact. That's it. Thanks very much for the challenge, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Bye-bye.